Welcome to Rashid moved to the United States with one simple hope, to earn enough so his mother in Lahore would never have to worry about medicine again. He worked 2 part-time jobs in New Jersey, one at a gas station during nights and one in a small Desi grocery store during the afternoons. The days blended into each other, and the nights sometimes felt colder than winter itself, but Rashid kept going with a smile his mother couldn't see but always heard in his voice whenever he called home. Every evening, before stepping into his second shift, he would sit on a bench behind the store, eat a simple chicken roll he packed from home, and talk to his mother over WhatsApp voice notes. She always pretended to be strong, but he knew she wasn't. Years of diabetes and loneliness had made her fragile, and the distance had carved a silent wound between their hearts. Still, she told him she was proud. Still, he told her he was fine. One night, as he sat on that same bench, he saw a girl crying in her parked car beside the dumpster. At first, he didn't want to intrude. America had taught him that everyone needs privacy, but the way her shoulders shook told him she wasn't okay. After a long hesitation, he gently knocked on the window. She quickly wiped her face and rolled it down with a forced smile. "I'm fine," she whispered. "Doesn't look fine," he replied softly. Her name was Aisha. She had moved from Atlanta to New Jersey after marrying a man who promised her a future, but instead she found herself trapped in a one-bedroom apartment with someone who believed her life should only revolve around cooking, cleaning, and staying silent. She worked at a mall kiosk, thousands of miles away from her parents in Pakistan, unable to tell them the truth because she didn't want them to worry. She felt alone, even though millions lived around her. They talked for 5 minutes, then 10, then an hour. She cried, he listened. He talked, she listened. Something human connected them, something gentle, something that felt like home even though they stood far from their own. Over the next few weeks, they met during Rashid's dinner breaks. Sometimes she brought biryani for him, sometimes he brought chai for her, sometimes they simply sat without talking, because some people can hear your silence louder than your words. Rashid had no intention of crossing boundaries, his only intention was to give her what he himself desperately needed, someone who cared. But life never lets comfort stay too long. One evening, Aisha arrived with a bruise on her wrist. Rashid's heart dropped seeing it. She remained quiet when he asked her what happened, but her silence screamed the truth louder than any words. She tried to reassure him she would handle everything, but she couldn't hide the tremble in her voice. The next day, she didn't come. Or the next 3. Rashid's anxiety grew like a storm inside him. He checked the parking lot every break, paced behind the store, looked through every car window that passed by, nothing. He barely slept. His mother's voice, usually comforting, made him feel guilty because he knew he couldn't tell her how heavy his heart felt. After 6 days, she finally messaged him 3 words, "I need help." He left his shift immediately. She sent her location, her apartment, and Rashid drove as fast as he could in his old Honda. He found her sitting on the building stairs, shaking, her face swollen from crying. She told him everything. Her husband had taken her phone, yelled at her for hours, accused her of cheating even though she wasn't even allowed to go anywhere without telling him. She said she had reached her breaking point, and she didn't know what to do next. Rashid didn't think, he just acted. He took her to a nearby women's shelter, where they connected her with support services, legal aid, and a safe place to sleep. She was scared, but she trusted him. The shelter thanked him for taking responsibility, but Rashid shook his head. "I'm just doing what any human should," he said quietly. That night, when he returned home to his tiny basement room, he finally allowed himself to break down. Not because of Aisha, but because he realized how much pressure he had been carrying without ever showing it. He cried quietly, remembering his mother's trembling voice asking him every call, "Beta, tumthi ko na?" And he always lied. He felt guilty for being thousands of miles away, not able to hold her hand, not able to make her chai, not able to sit beside her when she felt lonely. The emotional weight of 2 worlds, his mother's struggles and Aisha's pain, pressed on him until he felt he could barely breathe. But with the morning light came a message from Aisha, "Thank you, you saved me." And somehow, that lifted something inside him. Over the next weeks, she rebuilt her life from scratch. Rashid helped silently, respectfully, keeping distance unless she needed him. He taught her how to use public transportation, helped her open a bank account, helped her find a new job at a local boutique, and encouraged her to join English classes offered at the community center. Every time she smiled, he felt like he had brought a little bit of light back into someone's world. And every time she succeeded, she told him it was because he believed in her when she had stopped believing in herself. But even happy moments carry shadows. And Rashid's life was about to face a test he never expected, a test that would force him to confront the meaning of sacrifice, love, and destiny. Because one winter morning, while Rashid was helping a customer at the gas station, he received a voice note from his cousin in Pakistan. It began with trembling breaths and ended with words that shattered his soul. Rashid bhai, anti ki tabiat bohat kharab hai. Dr. K rahi hain time bohat kam hai. He froze. The world stopped. And in that one moment, everything he had built in America felt worthless compared to the possibility of losing the person who meant more than his own life. Rashid stood behind the gas station counter, unable to move, unable to breathe. His hands trembled so violently that a customer asked if he needed water, but he couldn't respond. His mind replayed the voice note over and over again until it felt like the sound was scraping his heart from the inside. His mother, the reason he came to America, the reason he sacrificed sleep, comfort, youth, was fading. And he wasn't there. He stepped outside into the cold, bitter air of a New Jersey winter and dialed his cousin immediately. The phone rang twice before someone answered. In the background, he could hear crying, hurried footsteps, voices giving instructions in panic. His cousin repeated the same words. Dr. K rahi hain, unke organs slow ho rahi hain. Rashid felt the world collapse under his feet. All he wanted was to run to the airport, run to Pakistan, run to his mother's side. He didn't care about money, work, bills, rent, nothing. But reality wasn't that simple. He had only $600 in his bank account, and a last-minute ticket to Lahore cost 3 times that. His payday was 9 days away. He didn't even realize he had sunk to the sidewalk until a coworker rushed outside and helped him up. But Rashid pushed everyone away. He didn't want sympathy, he just wanted his mother. That night, he drove home in silence. Not music, not news, just silence that felt heavier than grief itself. His phone buzzed, Aisha calling. He ignored it at first, not wanting to break down in front of anyone. But she kept calling, and eventually he picked up. The second he said, hello, she knew something was wrong. He didn't need to explain, she could hear the pain in his breath. She told him to come to the shelter, even if it was late. You shouldn't be alone, she said softly. Rashid didn't argue. He drove there, walked into the small community lounge, and sat on a worn sofa. Aisha sat beside him, and the moment she touched his hand, he broke. He cried in the way only a son can cry when he fears losing the one person who held him when he was small. She didn't interrupt, she didn't offer quick solutions. She simply held his hands and let him feel everything. When he finally spoke, his voice was cracked. I can't lose her, Aisha. I left her alone for this stupid dream, and now I might not even get to say goodbye. She squeezed his hand and whispered, you came here to help her, not abandon her. But Rashid shook his head. Logic didn't matter, emotion did. Aisha asked him the cost of a ticket. When he told her, she didn't hesitate. She stood up, grabbed her bag, pulled out an envelope, and placed it in his hands. He tried refusing, but she insisted. You helped me when I had no one. Let me help you now. Please. When he opened the envelope, his breath caught. It was the money she had saved for months to move out of the shelter once her situation stabilized. She was offering it to him without a second thought. Rashid felt another kind of pain, one born from gratitude so deep it nearly crushed him. He returned $200 to her and said, this is enough. I can manage the rest. She tried to argue, but he wouldn't let her give up her future for him. He hugged her instead, a quiet, emotional embrace between two souls who understood each other without needing explanations. Rashid booked the ticket for the earliest flight the next morning. Before leaving, he visited the store owner, who allowed him leave without cutting his hours. Then he called the gas station manager, who wasn't as kind but eventually agreed. Rashid didn't care if he lost the job. He just needed to go. Aisha accompanied him to the airport. They didn't talk much. Sometimes silence carries more emotion than words ever can. Just before security, she told him, your mother will hear your voice. She will wait for you. He nodded, trying not to let tears escape. Aisha stepped forward and slipped a small tasbih into his hand. This helped me when I had nothing, she said. Maybe it will help you now. He boarded the plane with trembling hands and a heart full of fear. Every minute felt like an hour. Every flight announcement felt like a delay. He prayed silently, gripping the tasbih until his knuckles turned white. When he finally landed in Lahore, his cousin was waiting with a worried expression. They drove through familiar streets that now felt strange. When they reached the house, Rashid ran inside before the car even stopped. He saw her lying on the bed, frail and surrounded by family. And the moment she saw him, her eyes filled with tears. She lifted a trembling hand, and he fell to his knees beside her. Ami, main aa gaya, he whispered, his voice breaking. She placed her hand on his face, smiling weakly. Mujhe pata de, mera beta aayega. Rashid held her hand for hours, talking, crying, remembering everything he had missed and everything he still had. She wasn't gone, not yet, and he was determined not to let another moment slip by. Over the next weeks, her condition stabilized. She wasn't fully recovered, but she improved enough to sit up, eat properly, and talk. Rashid stayed by her side every day. And one evening, she surprised him by saying, Beta, tum America wapas jao. Tumhari zindagi wahan hai. He shook his head, but she insisted, you came when I needed you. Now go and live. I don't want to be the reason you stop dreaming. Rashid returned to the US a month later, but something inside him had changed. He wasn't just chasing money anymore. He was chasing purpose. The night he returned, he went to see Aisha. She was standing outside the shelter, waiting. When their eyes met, she smiled, a soft, emotional smile that carried everything they didn't need to say out loud. He stepped closer and whispered, "Thank you, for saving me too." And in that moment, under the cold American sky, two Desi souls realized something powerful. Sometimes family is the one we're born into. And sometimes, it's the one we find thousands of miles away.